Hey, everybody, and welcome back for another deep dive. I've been thinking a lot lately about what makes a great teacher
Mm-hmm.
really great.
Yeah.
Like, what sets them apart?
Right.
And while we're at it, we might as well throw in a little artificial intelligence, too.
Okay.
So, could a machine, ever be a great teacher?
Mm.
That's what we're going to dive into today.
Awesome.
We've got two sources for this one, a book called Building a Better Teacher
Okay.
and a YouTube documentary, How Far is Too Far? The Age of AI.
Cool.
So the book Building a Better Teacher starts off, and it kind of lays out the challenges that American education faces.
Yeah. It paints a pretty realistic picture.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that really stood out to me was that early education researchers often ignored what was actually happening in the classroom.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so
Or
interesting.
like if you're trying to figure out how to bake a cake,
Right.
you don't just ignore the oven.
Right.
There's a couple of reasons why that happened, though.
Okay.
One of them.
And this is so funny because, the way this ties in,
Yeah.
this guy, Nate Gage, who is this big name in kind of education research,
Yes.
he wanted to go into psychology.
Uh-huh.
But back then, there was a lot of prejudice, and the only program that would take him was in educational psychology.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So it's like this bias
Yeah.
that affected a whole field of study.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And another big reason was they just thought that teaching was too complex to study scientifically.
Oh, really?
So instead of looking at the real magic that happens when a teacher connects with their students,
Right.
they were looking at superficial stuff, like how many times a teacher walked across the classroom.
What? Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
It's ridiculous.
Judging a fish by its ability to climb a tree.
Totally.
But thankfully, not everyone had that mindset.
Right.
The book talks about this teacher, Deborah Ball, who taught elementary school.
Yeah.
And she was like, no, there's got to be a way that we can teach math where kids actually understand it.
Not just memorizing it.
Right, like robots.
Yeah.
We want those light bulbs to go off.
Exactly.
And so she,
So Deborah's story actually illustrates a really important concept called pedagogical content knowledge.
ooh, that's a mouthful.
I know it sounds fancy, but it's actually pretty simple.
Okay.
It basically means, your subject matter inside and out, and you also understand how students learn best.
I see.
So it's like being a chef.
Okay.
You might be the best chef in the world, but that doesn't automatically make you a great cooking teacher.
Right.
You need to know how to break down those skills and explain them in a way that makes sense to someone who's just starting out.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Thanks.
So Deborah, she really gets it. She even went back and retook math courses from elementary school all the way through calculus,
Wow.
just to refresh her memory and see how these concepts could be presented in a way that would really resonate with her students.
That's dedication.
And there's this great anecdote about her teaching fractions.
Oh, wow.
And you know how even adults,
Mm-hmm.
we sometimes struggle
Yeah.
with what a fraction truly represents.
Exactly. It just shows that teaching isn't just about knowing the answer.
Right.
It's about explaining things in a way that clicks for someone who's learning it for the first time.
Love it.
Building that bridge between what you know and what they need to know.
And to really figure all this out, she partnered with another teacher, Magdalene Lampert,
Uh-huh.
and together they created these things called teaching labs.
Interesting.
And they would observe and analyze classroom interactions, in detail.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of like detective work, but for education.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
And their work actually led to the development of the idea of pedagogical content knowledge, which we were just talking about.
Right.
It's like great teachers don't just know their stuff.
They know how to make their students know it, too.
That's it.
It's the difference between giving someone a fish and teaching them to fish.
Exactly.
Which one's going to be more useful in the long run?
Now, the book goes on to talk about the challenges of actually spreading good teaching practices.
Yeah, making it happen on a larger scale.
Right. And they talk about this guy, Seneca Rosenberg, who was studying a charter school network called Achievement First.
Interesting.
And initially, he was super impressed with their teacher training program.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were really structured and systematic.
Okay.
But then he started to notice something.
What's that?
While they were really good at training teachers, the content of the training,
Yeah.
it was still pretty traditional.
Hmm.
And a lot of it was focused on preparing for standardized tests.
So that raises a big question. Are we sacrificing deep learning
Right.
for good test scores?
It's like teaching someone how to climb a ladder
Yeah,
and never letting them see the view from the top.
exactly.
That's it.
You missed the whole point.
Yeah.
It's a tough balance,
Sure.
We want kids to learn and explore,
Yeah.
but we also need to assess their progress somehow. And speaking of assessing progress, this whole idea of standardized testing versus deep learning, it reminds me of the role of technology in education.
Oh, yeah.
Which brings us to our YouTube documentary, How Far Is Too Far? The Age of AI.
Okay.
It showcases some really amazing AI projects, but the one that I found most fascinating was the musician Will.i.am.
Oh, yeah.
He's not just a fan of AI, he's actually collaborating with it.
I know. I saw that. It's so cool.
Like, he's got this robotic drum arm
Yeah.
that plays alongside him.
It's wild.
But what's even cooler is that Will.i.am sees AI as a way to enhance human creativity, not replace it.
Right.
Like, he talks about these digital avatars.
Yeah.
Imagine having a virtual version of yourself
Right.
that can create art or music or whatever you can imagine.
That's amazing.
And when you think about it in the context of education,
Yeah.
the possibilities are huge.
Like, imagine, like, personalized learning experiences.
Exactly, tailored to each student's strengths and interests.
Oh, my gosh. That would be incredible.
Like having a personal tutor who knows exactly how you learn best.
And speaking of incredible technology, did you see that Skywalker hand in the documentary?
Oh, yeah.
It's a bionic prosthetic
It's mind-blowing.
that uses ultrasound to detect muscle movements in the amputee's arm.
Yeah, it allows for such precise control.
It's almost like having a real hand back.
It's a great example of how technology can really make a difference in people's lives.
It really is.
And what I find fascinating is how it utilizes the brain's incredible ability to adapt.
Right.
Like, it uses the concept of phantom limbs and muscle memory.
Oh, wow.
So the user can actually control the hand almost as if it were their own.
That's wild.
It's like rewiring the brain to interact with this super advanced tool.
And the documentary doesn't shy away from the big questions either,
Like what?
like free will.
Oh, yeah.
Could we ever create a machine that actually thinks for itself, like makes its own decisions?
That's a question that's been around for centuries.
I know.
But with AI advancing so rapidly, it's more relevant than ever.
Oh, sure.
It really makes you think about what it means to be human.
Right.
As AI becomes more sophisticated, it's natural to wonder if we're creating something that could one day rival or even surpass our own intelligence.
It's a little scary, honestly.
Yeah, it can be, but I think it's important to remember that even as AI gets more powerful, it's still a tool that we humans create and control.
Right.
The choices we make about how we develop and use AI will ultimately determine its impact on the world.
That's a good point. Yeah, it really makes you think.
It does. You know what I was thinking about?
Thanks, that.
Could AI ever, like, truly replace the human touch of a teacher?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Like someone like Deborah Ball, who we were talking about earlier.
Right.
You know, she didn't just understand math. She understood her students.
Right, their struggles.
Exactly, their triumphs.
Yeah.
Their unique perspectives.
Could a machine ever do that?
Yeah, could it inspire a student to love learning?
The way a great teacher can.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have
From education to artificial intelligence.
two seemingly different worlds.
Right. But as we've seen,
Yeah.
they're actually connected in some really interesting ways.
Definitely, I think it all comes down to that same drive
Okay.
to understand the human mind, the
Yeah.
same curiosity that fuels scientific discovery.
It's all part of the same journey.
Exactly. And the more we learn about how we learn,
Yeah.
the closer we get to creating machines that might one day learn alongside us.
So here's a final thought for everyone listening. After hearing about Deborah Ball's amazing dedication and the potential of something like the Skywalker hand, what do you think, could a machine ever truly capture the essence of a great teacher? That spark of human connection that makes learning come alive? It's a question worth pondering as we continue to explore the possibilities of both education and artificial intelligence. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.